I want to tell you a story. The year is 2013 and I'm relatively new to Atlanta. Once I'm here, I meet an engineer named Grans on a production website called Gear Sluts, now called Gear Space. So I book a session with him so he could help me mix my beats. That day, I learned a powerful lesson that sticks with me to this very day. So I get to the studio, crack open my laptop, open up FL Studio, and we go ahead and take a look at the mixer window along with the EQ settings for my beat. Why did you cut so much mid-range out of your piano, he asked. All I could do was shrug. Okay, so what did it sound like before you changed it with the EQ? He followed up. All I could do was shrug and get quiet. The fact is, I was just really doing stuff just to do it. At the end of that session, I walked away with a very powerful lesson, and that's to always understand why I'm doing what I'm doing when it comes to mixing. In the modern age, there's so much general information and even misinformation when it comes to mixing. It's really easy to get lost. So instead of just sharing general EQ tips, I figured I'd go ahead and be vulnerable and give you my top 5 EQ mistakes and what I've learned from them in the process. So I figured you can learn from my mistakes instead of making your own. So enough talking, let's go ahead and get right into the list. You ready? Let's get into it. Mistake number 1, adding an EQ just because. This connects to the story at the very beginning of this video. I would add an EQ and change the sound of an instrument with no real rhyme or reason. Honestly, I thought it was just the thing to do. Now, I have an idea of what I want the sound to actually sound like before grabbing the EQ. I also ask myself, how will this instrument sound in relation to other sounds in the frequency range? And also, how would this sound work in context of the entire beat itself? Mistake number 2, assuming every EQ sounded exactly the same. Let's say I was choosing between the SSL G channel by Waves and the stock parametric EQ2 by FL Studio. I used to assume they both worked identically because they're both EQs, right? The SSL G channel is actually modeled after the real G series analog mixing board. So it's gonna color the sound differently as opposed to the FL Studio parametric EQ2 stock sound. That's gonna be a bit more transparent. And if you boost frequencies in both plugins, they're gonna sound different. It's important to understand what the EQ was doing underneath the surface. And the best way to do that is by trying it out and also reading the manual. Mistake number 3, not A-Bing my EQ changes. Here's a trick I use, and I want you guys to use it as well. Let's say you're EQing a sound, right? What I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes and then rapidly click on the bypass button. So it's gonna be on and off, on and off, on and off. You never quite know whether or not the EQ is on or off at this point, right? Since your eyes are still closed. Now, I want you to slowly start clicking with your eyes still closed and then ask yourself, when does this sound actually improve? When does it actually sound and feel better? Is it when I'm clicking now or when I'm clicking now? Take your time while you're doing it, and I promise you, the results are gonna shock you. You wanna be mixing with your ears and not your eyes, and using this A-B trick is gonna save you a lot of time. Mistake number 4, not understanding the capabilities of compressors and saturators. In the beginning, sometimes the sonics I was actually chasing could be found within a compressor or a saturator and not an EQ. For example, with the CLA76 plugin by Waves, you can actually turn off the compressor and drive some sound into it to actually change the tone. Another compressor, the DBX160 by Waves, can actually be applied to add extra punch to some of your kicks. You don't have to apply it all the way. You can actually dial back the mixing knob and just apply a little bit to it to really get that sound that you're looking for. Also, one of my favorite saturators is the stock lo-fi plugin that comes with Pro Tools. This saturator can be used to add excitement to vocals and drums. So what's the overall point in listing those plugins? Unfortunately, in the past, I would just grab any random EQ and hope to achieve those sounds that I could actually pull out in a saturator or a compressor. Different tools serve different purposes to achieve different results. Know your plugins, test out how they sound, read the manual, and even take a look at some reviews on different websites of the plugins, so that way that can also give you a couple of suggestions. And finally, mistake number 5, missing out on using dynamic EQs. This one really applies to vocal mixing. I would just grab any random parametric EQ and start cutting frequencies. Instead of taming frequencies, which I can do with a dynamic EQ, I would just totally cut them out. This led to me chasing my tail and adding back the pleasing frequencies later on in the vocal chain, which was now lost in the pursuit of clarity. These days we have some great dynamic EQs like F6 by Waves, Pro Q3, and even the Kirchhoff EQ, and all of them are capable and can help you achieve the sound that you're looking for. In the comments, let me know some of your beginning EQ mistakes. Don't be embarrassed, we've all been there. Hey, make sure you hit like and subscribe. I'm Desmond A, and I'll be back with more great videos. Peace.
Desmond A.